1 year I went to 249 rodeos and ropings and took 12 hours in college.
Everybody always talks about how intelligent you are. Was school just easy? I mean,
school?
Yeah.
I failed first grade. I failed first grade.
Everybody says how smart you are. You're ahead of your time.
No.
So
No, I can't read or write. I mean, I'm serious. I can't read or write.
How'd you get to all them rodeos then?
Huh? I just knew how to. I could see that. I didn't read that good.
You feel good? Feel comfy?
Yeah, I feel fine.
I feel fine. This guy. I guess we should start. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Greenman Steven. Yes, sir. The nickname. How'd you get it?
Oh, just when I tied, I was kind of tied when I put my wraps on. I kind of just, and it started out I was kind of groaning, but then it just kind of went, and I tied. But now I don't do it anymore. But
you grew out of it
because I'm old. I kind of wrap. I don't spin. I used to spin tie.
Really?
Ward was giving a school down there at Cypress.
Yeah,
and he was showing them how to short wrap. You know, he's one of the best tires there ever was. Roy Cooper to me.
Yes, sir.
You know, and somebody said, "Well, what about the spin tie?" And they said, "Well, said it never works." He said, "What about Stephen Perry?" And he said, "Oh, he's a freak of nature."
I never knew where it originated from. You know, I grew up going to all them ropings all the time.
My voice, it's always, it's loud, squeaky.
My buddy Brogan Miller that works for me and stuff and drives and we're good friends. He started going to the ultimate ropings and he said he was on the other side one time and he heard you and he thought somebody tore a knee up or something over there. I think that was in your prime of your squealing right there at the top of it.
Well,
you're a young man. How old are you?
75. I'll be 75 in May.
And you're still going rodeo?
Yeah, we
rope every weekend, don't you?
Yeah, I try to go. Well, last weekend was the first weekend this year because they only had the ultimates. Well, the 2 weekends that they had them, it was cold, and I'm not doing any more cold ropings.
No more.
I've done as many ropings on Sundays around Houston, all cold, and I'm not doing any more.
No more cold roping for you.
No
more.
Why do you still do it? What keeps you going?
Oh, I just love to rope.
You just love roping?
I had throat cancer.
Really?
And Ricky Canton had his ropings. I was taking treatments down there in Houston, and I lived every Friday and Saturday and Sunday to meet Joni at Ricky's ropings.
Really?
And we rope, I'd get up, and one weekend I woke up and I was sick because I'd had chemo. And I called her. She didn't answer the phone. Well, then she sees where I called her. And I told she was in Bastrop. She said, "Well," I said, "I'm not coming. I'm sick at my stomach, at the treatment." She says, "Well, I wish you'd have called me." I said, "I did." So, "Oh, yeah, I do have a missed call for you." I was in the shower. But anyway, she went on rope, but I just didn't go. But I rope just right through it. I didn't practice.
Through throat cancer and everything.
Yeah. But I made it through it. But I lost about 30 pounds. And they wanted to put a feeding tube, but I wouldn't let them. Anyway, let's talk about happy times.
Yes, sir. They said that no one got to the rodeos better than you. They said no one could get to the rodeos as much as Stephen Perry. From 3, 4 in one day, whatever it was, they said you were the master. How'd you do it?
Just knew the secretaries, got along good. Just, and I wanted to go to them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people they want to rope and go to rodeos. And a lot of people said I went to too many.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I had Terry Kitchens one time, and we went to 15 rodeos over the 4th of July. I was with Neil Felton and Mark Ivy and me and Terry. And he placed at all but 2 of them, and I even placed at them, at Tig and Amarillo.
Wow. He
won $5,600. While he was with that weekend. Of course, we started on Tuesday, ended the next Tuesday.
Right.
So, I mean, it was, but, a couple of days in there, we went to 3.
You said you knew the secretaries. Joe said you'd keep your little book in there with their birthdays.
No, I didn't keep the birthday, but they sure heard from me at Christmas. my daddy got this candy from Chicago, Fannie Mae. And that's the best candy you could get. 2 or 3 layers of chocolates and every kind of candy you could have. My daddy kept put up in his bedroom, and he'd only bring it out to people he'd want to give it to. He was a pretty good character himself. He didn't leave it out for everybody to come by to get a bite of candy.
Only the person he likes.
Huh?
Only the people he likes.
The only people he likes, yeah.
No, you had to have when we talked to people in the 70s, 80s trying to enter all these rodeos, you had to have the connections. You had to, because it seemed harder to get around because what was the process? You're picking up the phone, calling the secretaries. And so if you don't have the connections, you can't get into the rodeos.
Well, that and they knew I wouldn't abuse it. If I told them I wanted to go Saturday night with 3 people, would you think about us if it went to filling up? And what would hurt you, people would go stand in line in the town. Terry Walls was a big producer, and he made you call in.
Uh-huh.
He said because the bull riders would come stand in line, and then for Saturday night, all the local kids were going to ride a bull.
Uh-huh.
And they see that bull go Thursday, and they didn't want on him. They'd be standing at the rodeo but not pay their fees and turn his bulls out,
Really?
his best bulls.
Really?
And that's the way it came into being. But I'd rather call in than let them stand in line.
Phew. How many rodeos do you think you go to a year?
One year I went to 249 rodeos and ropings.
249.
And took 12 hours in college, both semesters.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Everybody always talks about how intelligent you are. Was school just easier? I mean,
School?
yeah.
I failed first grade. I failed first
Everybody
grade.
says how smart you are. You're ahead of your time.
No,
So that
no, I
GPA
can't read or write. I mean, I'm serious. I can't read or write.
How'd you get to all them rodeos then?
Huh? I just knew how to. I could see that. I read that good.
You figured out what you needed to figure out. You
I
didn't
could-
figure out what you
yeah.
didn't need.
But-
Oh, dog.
But I mean, just Ed Herklock's the guy that flagged a lot of ropings, Katy, and rodeos like that. Somebody asked him how far it was from so-and-so to so-and-so. He said, I don't know, but you can call Stephen Perry. He'll tell you how many hours it'll take you to get there.
Man,
That is
You know.
hilarious. Lanham, I was calling Lanham and Joe to get your number and stuff, and he said, "Don't text him." I said, "Why?" He said, "He don't text." I said, "He'll call you. Call him, and he'll probably call you back." But he said he don't text.
No.
And I was hooking this deal up, and I'm calling him, and he says, "Where do you want to meet?" I said, "Well, I'll just say the address." "Oh no, I don't do none of that."
you know,
Joni can. Joni can do all that. My girlfriend,
Mhm.
she's real good at that. But me, I just roll with the flow.
roll with the flow. So
Me and Joe were going up 77 one time. You know how it goes up through I guess the town of Robertson. Anyway, we're going up through there. Told him, turn right here. I was laying in the back. I had a truck and had the back seat taken out and had a bed back there. I just raised up and looked around. I said, Joe, turn right here. He said, well, we got to go up there and do that. No, turn right here. I'm telling you, turn. 2 miles over on the interstate. He said, how'd you know that? I said, look at the map. My hand.
Your
I showed
hand.
him
You
my hand.
remembered it that good.
Yeah, I just know the roads or knew them back then pretty well.
Oh,
and 249 rodeos, you said it was. How old are you? 20?
75.
No, sorry. During
then.
that time.
Probably 25, 30. The first year in 75, I got my card. And I entered 100. Entered 138 rodeos, and I turned out 9 calves.
really?
And I turned out at Yuma. I hadn't missed first and last because I was up at San Antonio. And I had to miss first and last at Tucson. And I was in the first 10 ropers of the slack, and they didn't trade.
Uh-huh.
And other than that, I just turned out a few here and there. And never got on a plane.
Drove to every one of them.
Drove to every one of them. I
God.
rodeoed with a man called Kenneth Kelly.
Uh-huh.
And then different ones, but he was the main one.
Yes, sir.
And we went.
God, dog.
How was
That-
rodeo different back then? I mean, when you're in your 25, 30 going to all these rodeos, and he goes to 80 to, I mean, you go to more than your PRCA count. You go to 90, 100 throughout the year, but he sees all of the things across the country. How do you think it's changed over the years?
Well, first off, we didn't have Procom. You entered with the secretaries.
Called straight to the secretary.
I think we called in the secretary. And,
That's where that candy started paying off.
well, no, not so much there. You just kind of knew them there. That Candy was an amateur secretary.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? More
Yes,
of the
sir.
amateur deal, and they didn't have any amateur association, much SRA and all. But there was a lady there, Hazel, turning different ones. But usually you just took thin, but it's where you went after that.
Uh-huh.
I'll tell you a little deal. I quit rodeoing for a while. About a year and a half, I helped my dad on the ranch and didn't have a horse. Well, I called in this rodeo at Pasadena, and I was going to go into slack. Well, I figured she'd go right down the list as you called in, so I waited pretty near the last little bit to call in, last 45 minutes to 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And I asked them when they were running slack. And every time I called a rodeo or my mother called a rodeo, and my mother was good.
She entered you too?
Oh yeah, she entered me.
Really?
We had two phones where you push one number and it rang, in her house and my house, and they were right there. And anyway, I called them. I said, I'd like to enter the calf rope. And I said, when are y'all running slack? She said, well, we're running slack Saturday morning. And I just fixed to take a breath and ask her, could she put me down that slack? And I just waited a second. She said, but we got so many ropers, we're having to run it Sunday after the rodeo. And I said, ma'am, could you let me go in the Sunday after the rodeo? I said, I'm up at a convention rodeo at Symington, but I can probably get there. I said, I'm Stephen Perry. Oh, Stephen, this is Mary Chapman. You'll be the last roper in the slack. And she was the nicest lady on the books and all that you'd ever know. Said, I'll put you down at the end, and I won that rodeo. Joe rode home with me. That was the 1st of May. And I went that on my birthday, May 17th. I went up and bought a black horse from Galen, George's.
Really?
And then we went to rodeoing. And I'm pretty sure Joe went with me some that summer.
Yes, sir.
But he was real young. He didn't have his driver's license.
Yeah, I mean, me and him were talking. So this is kind of how this got rolling for us on finding out what we enjoyed to do was interviewing the legends, just hearing cool stories and stuff, and kind of find out that's what we enjoyed to do and like to do. But we called Joe and we're telling him how bad we wanted to interview you, and because he talked about you in his podcast. But then he told Cole a quote, and we said, "Can we quote you on this?" And he said, "Yes, sir."
He said, "One of the big reasons I turned out to be what I was because of Stephen Perry."
Well, I appreciate that coming from Joe. And let me tell you what happened, though. The 16th, whenever he graduated high school, I picked him up at Wharton, and we went to Wynnewood, Oklahoma. And we went up there and stayed with Tom Roker with the IRA rodeos. Well, he won. He won $7,500, which was a good bit of money back then.
Yeah.
From then till the 1st of August. Not counting all the other rodeos. Me and him would take off and come down here on the 4th of July and try to go to 4 or 5 of these good rodeos and then go back up there.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, he was going to make the IRA finals, but he'd been to a PRCA rodeo and had a $300 fine. Well, they wouldn't let him go to the finals. Well, this is karma, and I always have karma, or whatever you call it, good luck. Well, when he made the fight, they wouldn't let him go there, he went to go finish filling his permit. And then I roped at the IRA finals, in 85.
Uh-huh.
Well, he went and filled his permit, and he roped and won the world as a rookie. And I would have been 12th. I wouldn't have got the rope at the IRA finals because they only took 12 and took some region guys. I wouldn't have made it, and he wouldn't have.
And he wouldn't have won the world.
No.
That's unreal.
That is actually a crazy story.
That's a true story.
Really?
So
that he just decided I ain't going to be able to go to the IRA finals because
so
it's
I'm
fine.
going to go film my garden. I'll finish some more of the story. He lacked a little bit on his finals, and I had a big yellow horse, and he rode his horse. Me and Joe had a deal, ride 15%. Well, I'd rather have him riding for 15% than anybody else for 25.
Right,
you know
for
what
sure.
I mean? He won. Now,
He's that good, yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, he goes and he hadn't filled his permit. Well, Leesville rolled around. Well, his season didn't end, till right there at Leesville County and some of the others.
Uh-huh.
But the others wasn't taking permits. Well, he wanted to take my yellow horse to Leesville. We met me at Simon, picked him up, went over and rode him. And he won second or third, and he filled his permit. And he was out there kind of griping, and Jenna said, look, Stephen let you bring this horse over here. He said he wanted to bring him and Brian. He's up in the slack. He might get to ride him over there. Come on, load up and let's go. But he got on that horse, and he won his last money over there at Leesville.
To fill the permit.
And
he goes and wins the world.
I don't think he hadn't been to one rodeo, one or two rodeos maybe before he went up to IRA. He never knew it. His mother paid the $300 fine when he got to the house. You know what I mean? He didn't even know it was a rule. We just know you couldn't have both cards at the same time, but nothing about a permit.
Really?
So you didn't tell a story about how y'all initially got connected. Were y'all just in the same area, going to the same rope-ins, became buddies? And y'all
no. Like he rode home from that rodeo that I went to at Pasadena. Well, then we just, Walter knew me and I knew Walter and everything, and I'd heard about him. There was a man down there at Bezoria, Dean Kirsch, and Joe roped ribbon open for his daughter, and I'd heard about Joe, and you couldn't help but hear about Joe.
Yeah.
He'd rope before God got the message.
That's good. But was he the first one that you cracked out? Because that's what you always hear. Stephen Perry takes these young guys and they just always go and they have all the success and everything.
I imagine Joe was the first one I took, but I've entered a lot of different. Atlanta Mango. Me and Atlanta Mango. I'll tell you what, I owe Atlanta Mango a lot.
Yes, sir.
Because he'd come ride them dinks of mine, and I'd enter him, and we've had 2 or 3 crosswords, but we ain't never had anybody I've ever been with. I'm friends with them afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have people rodeo together, and then they get out in the middle of the stream and all that, but there ain't nobody that I've ever been with that I'm not friends with.
Yes, sir. That's pretty cool.
But like Lanham, and then I had that Terry Kitchens, and
I heard David Bowen.
Yeah, David went with me, and I never entered him, never mounted him much because he had a good horse.
Really?
But that David Bowen, he was a good fella, and his mother and daddy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who else did you cross paths with? Who else did you rope with? Anybody else?
Oh yeah, Kenneth Killing, I went that one year, and I don't know. I just call people and go. Lanham, Terry, had a boy, Chip Gatlin. He had a daddy that roped real good, Norman Gatlin, back, before me.
Yes, sir.
Well, anyway, I took him one summer, and we got along real good and had a good time. But what really made me feel good was we was at Longview. Well, Chip fixed to go back to school, and we roped, and he was with his daddy, and anyway, he reached over and grabbed me on the shoulder, and he said, I really appreciate you taking my son. He got to go and see those rodeos he might never got to go to. Now, he roped after that, and he team roped after that. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And then I had Galen Georges went with me a lot. I mean, he's a good friend. And Fred, when Fred right up here at Giddings, they'd have those 8-head jackpots and all. And he'd come up there and he'd say, he'd want to, he said, hey, so-and-so wants to rope. He wants to rope for $1,000. I said, I ain't got $1,000. You want to help me? I said, no, Fred, I ain't betting on no roping like that. I said, I ain't doing that. Well, I'd watch him. He'd have a horse. He rope with a guy named Casey Buteau. He'd send him up there on some horses, trading horses. Fred worked rope around there and knock around on him. And he'd win a little and all. And about the second, third day, I'd ask him, I said, Fred, if that kid still on rope? Oh, yeah, they've been telling me I ain't got no money. I ain't got this. You know how kids can be mean, And I said, well, go tell him you on rope for $1,500. He said, well, I ain't got but $750. I've won. I said, well, we're going to get the other $750. I said, I'm going to bet on you. He says, well, you wouldn't bet on me the other day? I said, no, but that kid done spent that money. He's going to have to go ask Daddy for it now.
You don't take his daddy's money.
And then Daddy will come down here and tell him how to rope. It'll be a cakewalk, Fred.
His dad's going to be in the box. And he's going to be screwed.
Be around there, But he could, Fred always, as a kid,
Unbelievable. What did I heard that Joe said you were the first one that he ever saw be in a match open, and halfway through you had him somebody beat pretty good, and you say, hey, you just want to pay up and go double or nothing on the second half? Is that true?
Yeah. I was roping a boy named Carl Guillory. David Porter came over and asked us, which is a friend of mine. Carl's was a friend of mine. He said, Joe, you want to rope a match rope tonight? Joe said, no, he had hurt his knee bad in the match roping. He said, Daddy told me not to rope any match roping till I got stronger. David went to walk off. I said, David, who you want to rope? He said, well, Carl Guillory wants to rope somebody. I said, I'll tell you what. I said, David kind of muttered something about Texas not, being scared. I said, I just want to show you we ain't scared in our truck. I said, I'll rope him 4 for 100. That's what I told him.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I ain't roping no more calves. I ain't roping for no more money. 4 for 100. Because I said, I done heard about that young boy. He can rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
So we go down there and we pick the calves. Well, I picked 2 of the calves you couldn't catch. And he picked 2 good calves. And, you flip. The winner gets the pick of the cattle or the pick of the position. Well, he won the flip. I thought, oh, man, I'm sunk now. Well, he won the flip. And he said, I'll rope first. I just thought, ooh.
Hey.
I said, run those 2 calves I picked first. Well, anyway, he runs the first one. He runs him off down there. And this son going to run. He run her down about 24 seconds. We was open over a good friend of mine, Eddie Armstrong's in Henderson. And I put the jerk line on the other side and got off the left. It was 12 or 13, So he come back and he ropes the second one. That son of a runs faster than the first one he had. Runs him all down. It's the deep old sand, and he missed him 2 or 3 times. And finally, I told Joe, I said, hey, go over and ask him if they won't pay that 100 off, and we'll just spin these calves back and flip again, start over for another 100. And I said, but stand back from him now, Joe. Don't let him hit you. When you tell him that it might make him mad. Well, Joe walked off about 20 foot, and Carl was sitting down there in the corner. I said, Joe, come here. I said, what's wrong? He said, what's wrong? I said, what's he doing down there? Joe said, I think he's quitting. I said, Joe, don't say nothing about roping over nothing. Let's get that 100 and go. Because I know anything can happen in a match rope.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, we got there and we was putting our stuff up. Carl asked me, said, do you ever run down the rope? Match time, Mr. Perry or Perry? He didn't call me Mr. I wasn't that old. And I said, Carl, watch this. I put my hand in the post and run off down there about 30 foot and stop. I said, you think I'm going to run down the rope with you as slow as I can get down the rope? And Norman Gatlin, the daddy of that boy, was there. And he said, Carl, you let that old man beat you and he can't get down the rope no better than run no faster than that. We all laughed. But now Cheyenne McCartney, that's his daughter.
Oh, really?
And they used to come to Piney Woods, and her daddy and all. She lost her daddy, and I thought that we all big friends. But
yes, sir.
That's just one little experience.
Wow.
I've done that a couple of times. So
One
time we did it on man. I'm not going to say his name because it didn't matter. We got hot checks on the match anyway. About 3,500.
It's like 30 grand now.
Huh?
It's like 30 grand now.
Yeah, it's about 3,500.
God, dog. I'm saying inflation these days.
I had a boy with me, Mark Belcher. And he was with me. And one other time we was off down there kind of below Cuero down in that country. And in fact, it was in Cuero Arena where you had all them matches in that deep sand.
Oh, yes, sir.
And he asked me one night about Ricky roping. Well, we was leaving and going Mercedes. We weren't going to stay around for no match roping. And then he jumped me out with Belcher over at Refugio. Well, how good does he rope? You reckon you can rope? You don't rope him at me? I said, well, tonight we ain't got nowhere to go after Cuero Slag. We're just going over and we'll have a little friendly match. And halfway through, now I'll tell you another story on that man too. David Nygaard. We was in Stephenville, Texas. And a man come up to me and asked if they wanted to have a match roping. Ted Kyle from Vernon. or not Vernaquana, where they lived, I think. Anyway, wanted to match Neil Felton at somebody. And they asked Joe. Joe said, no, we're going to put our calves up at this rope, and Buzz has got to go buy cattle tomorrow, and I've got to go to school. So I said, hey, I got a man here that'll rope y'all. And they said, who is it? About that time, Nygaard come across there and missed one. I said, that's David Nygaard. Said, he'll rope. And said, we'll rope. I'll rope him at y'all, or we'll both of us, we'll rope. And he said, I said, that's the fifth one he's missed at the roping. They said, really? Well, they jumped on it. Well, he was riding one fast horse. We went back there and picked us 4 or 5 runners again. And Neil comes across there. That Neil could rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
He comes across there and he ties the first one in 11 or 12, first runner. Nygaard, he fumbles around, ropes one of the good ones, 14 or 15. Anyway, go along there, and last calf, Neil missed him. And he had a little not the last calf, but the last of that set.
Mm-hmm.
He missed him and had a little trouble getting him caught. I don't remember how long he was or what. But anyway, they said, I went and asked Mr. Kyle if they wanted to pay off and just do it again. And he said, well, David hadn't roped that calf yet. And I said, no, sir, but it won't be just a minute. Terry Postrack, the Okies were there. Well, they bet a little something on him. And them calves come around the corner at Walls' Arena. Postrack had that runner by the tail. He stuck her in the chute, standing there. David sitting in the front of the box, just kind of like, well, Neil, would you ride out? I'm ready to rope. And he tied, he went on and won the roping.
God,
but that pairing of the calves to me in a match roping, having the right calves at the right time.
It's everything. Yeah.
It's everything.
I learned that in high school. There's a guy in Louisiana named Jace Gilbert. They roped good, but he made me look stupid that day when I didn't put the right calves at the right time in that match opening. I learned it pretty quick. He run right through me.
Who was so we look at Joe and he's a legend in our eyes. But Joe was just a kid to you. Who, when you were in your 20s, who were you looking up to? Who was that legend for you?
Oh, Glenn Franklin,
Mm-hmm.
Ernie Taylor. Ernie Taylor, now I'll tell you what, he had a horse called Scorpion, and he could rock and roll.
Really?
I never will forget, I was at Valley Mills at the Jackpot. He run a calf halfway, stepped off the right, was 9 flat. Come back and run one the same spot, ducked on the rope, was 9-1. I said, Ernie, that sure was 2 good runs, one off the left, one off the right, way off down there, halfway. He says, he popped that cigar out of his mouth. He says, yep, I'm just about the fast off one side as the other, ain't I?
No
off
way.
The left.
But
9-1 off the left.
He could go.
And just smoking a cigar.
Yeah, no, he was just smoking a cigar there after he roped. He didn't rope her while he roped.
So he would get off the left side, duck under the rope, flank tied, 9-1.
Yes, sir.
Unbelievable.
Yes, sir. There a lot of people could get off the left. Bobby Goodspeed back then.
Really?
And, to get a fall.
Yeah.
Fred, the first time he roped out there at San Angelo, Ernie and Ed Workman was roping the man that he roped. And they had a bunch of little slick calves. Little bramers, cut off. And I said, Fred couldn't be there later that evening, so I was supposed to cut his calves. And Tony Churchill asked me, he said, if you don't like these calves, we can recut them or what? They did it before we got there. And we were right on time, 1:00.
Yep.
And anyway, they already had those calves cut. Well, they didn't know it. Everybody thought Fred had horses that couldn't run. He did have horses that couldn't run or didn't run,
Right.
But we had Saul Mare. We talked about the mare at the service I went to for a friend of mine. But she could run and she could stop. And I know you know Jerry Alley.
Yes, sir.
He rodeoed with Ricky Canton, and Ricky's riding that mare that summer. And they were asking what horse that was when Fred rode her, because she stopped and worked that day like you wouldn't believe.
Really?
Fred goes over there with Barry from Galen, George's. And I don't go up there, but Fred goes up there and ropes 2 or 3 calves on her. And Galen had brought some fresh calves for him to see about roping her, riding her. And he's an order buyer. And he roped 2 or 3, and Galen says, well, what do you think? What do you think? You know, Galen thinking he's going to rope more. He said, oh, that's fine, Galen. I'd love to ride her if you'll let me take her.
Really?
And anyway, we got her out there, and he rode her. And
no problem on that horse. He just run right through him, I'm
he
sure.
just caught him whenever he wanted to. And now, don't get me wrong. He had a good horse for that first half. But you know that second half at San Angelo can be brutal.
Oh, buddy. I felt it.
I would pay money, a large amount of money, to transport back in time to prime vintage San Angelo match ropings, the Fiesta match ropings, man.
When I was 13 or 14 years old, Glenn Franklin and Jim Bob Altizer roped out there. And plus we stayed. I was with 2 guys that liked to trip, and we stayed and watched a trip. And I guess I was 14. And we got home, maybe 15, but we got home, and I was green. I didn't know nothing. I mean, they took me out there. I'm just thankful they did.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I got home about 3 o'clock that afternoon, and I crippled every roping calf. I had old head horse and tied the knot on. Well, I didn't break no legs or nothing, but every roping calf I had was sore because I was laying them down. I was going to be a tripper.
You left out there.
But I never did, you know.
Man, I got my hat from 2004, my felt hat I was wearing when my granny said, I was talking, I think Fred went there open that day, and she said, go ask somebody to sign it. Well, I got him, and then Blair Burke's walking by, so I get him, and I got Blair on there, Trevor, Cody, Fred, all those, and I got that felt hat in the living room. Mom found it the other day. We got to get a picture of that. That was pretty cool. The Roping Fiesta made a lot of ropers and a lot of, you know, the tradition that it was all those years. And I'm not saying it is right now what it was in its prime at all, but I don't know. It just feels like the purest form of roping, you know, and calf roping and tripping. And
it's some movie like about it, you know.
Well, that dadgum Mike, that bay horse that Jim Bob Altizer rode out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think he's ever been beat out there, was he?
I don't think so.
I mean, and he roped some
hogs. That's what Roy just kept talking about Jim Bob Altizer at that match. He said he was unbeatable.
He was, and I didn't see him but that one time.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't get around much. I just sheltered life down around Houston.
I tell you what, you got you a good woman though. No stress, you know. Means you got a full head of hair still.
Well, she ought to be bald-headed. If that's the case, but sure.
If that's the science behind it.
No, they said that Ty just said, he said that we heard stories about you would have it your truck, your trailer, you just get a blanket out and sleep on the side, pull out a mattress and just sleep out there in the truck.
No, I mean, it wasn't like I did it all night. I mean, it was just a deal where you where like you went to Snook or something, lasted 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to get up in the morning, go to some rodeos around Houston. You just, I'd go up there and have a fan. I'd plug in an announcer stand. When they'd walk out, I'd walk in. They'd all laugh at me.
You just take a blanket up there?
I didn't have to go spend $40 for a room for, you know what I mean, 5 or 6 hours, 10 hours.
Man, no alarms, nothing. I mean, I'm just trying to think about rodeoing when you're using a payphone to enter, you know. You don't have an alarm if you're trying to get some sleep or something before the slack.
The dollar sign should wake you up.
Yes, sir.
The dollar sign. But I didn't get many, but I might have somebody mounted that could get some, and I make sure they's up.
You get 15% on it.
Yeah.
Chin up.
I make sure they were there.
Did you ever tell him? So we got a funny video of JD Tadlock driving down the road with Houston Hutto, and he's harping on him saying, I need you 45 minutes. I'm sure you've heard it. But did you ever tell Joe, or he's just that good? You didn't have to tell him nothing. He just won that much. I mean,
when his daddy, and when I did a video for him, and they put that in there, asked me what I taught Joe about roping. I told him when Joe came to me, his daddy had taught him everything he needed to know.
Really? He was amazing teacher.
He was amazing teacher.
Really?
I went by there one afternoon. There's 14 things he told me about tying them. I got them written down in the book.
Really?
And that helped me. And when you went to the practice pen with Walter Beavers, like you went down to tie that day, you never heard Joe's name. And I've got a friend, Wes Cicero, who roped and went down to them, and he lives down there, helps me on the ranch, and pretty good guy. And he's in the trucking business, hauling these big loads. And but he says you never heard Joe's name when they were helping you with your roping. Now, when you went back up the house, his mother and daddy talked about him, but he tended to your roping.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And Joe was helping me one day, and Jerry Alley was there, and he said something. He said, "Well, Perry can't do that." And Joe was that way, telling me about, you know what I mean, about
Yep.
that helped my roping that day, you
Right.
know, just to help me with my tying. He didn't try to put things in the shawl do or anything.
Right. Wow. What's the biggest thing? So, do you watch the Cowboy Channel?
All the time. Well, no, it watches me some. I'd
You
fall
sleep when
asleep,
you're sleeping?
and Joni will wake me up, and the guy will be riding in the box, and I'll fall asleep before he nods. But we got it the next day. I'll watch it.
When do you think, I mean, so you saw it, you said you got your card in 75?
I had my car in 75, and I went to them rodeos, and you couldn't go both ways in.
Couldn't go IRA?
You couldn't
amateur
nothing. And so then in 76, I went to the buildings, and then I went to Katy, from San Angelo to Katy. I was up at San Angelo one afternoon, and Katy that night. But I never told nobody. You couldn't turn your card in or nothing. Well, I rodeoed along there about 2 years. I said I was going to go back and go to the buildings, and what I did, I paid my card up. I had my card. I just didn't go to any rodeos.
Gotcha.
Butch Bodie, a friend of mine, could really rope, left-handed, tied left. And he told me, he said, "Man, if you got your cards, you need to go to the buildings." "Oh, I ain't got my card, Joe. I didn't buy it back." Butch, I didn't buy it back. But I really did, and just didn't go to any rodeo. The day I decided I was going to go, within 2 weeks, I got a card where they had me on the list from Diddley. So then I just, didn't went amateur.
Uh-huh.
Well, in 85, they had the lawsuit where you go to amateur rodeos and PRCA.
Really?
And that's the worst thing for my roping could happen, because there's a top end and a bottom end to everything. But when you opened it up, the top end was everywhere.
Right.
Not everywhere. They leave and go into summer, but
Yeah.
And there's another guy.
Had to rope against them a lot more.
Yeah, you had to rope it. But it was bad for my roping. But I was 35 too. My roping was probably about done.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to go to Cheyenne, them big rodeos, and take those men up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd stay down here in amateur and PRCA rodeos too, Pecos and rodeos like that. But I'd stay down this way till we went to Cheyenne. Then I like to go. I don't like to lay around, a day off. We'd go up there, and there was a man named J.C. Dickens in Colorado. And he'd help me, tell me when to enter the amateurs. Well, up there, you got to enter amateurs 2 weeks in advance. But he'd tell me which ones, he'd give me the numbers, and I'd call and enter them, and we'd always be up somewhere every day when I'd go up through there.
Wow. What have you seen from 1980 to now in calf roping? I mean, obviously there's guys every era that rope really, really well, but the calves are smaller now. Cody Fred, Joe, Roy, are four of the best ever. You saw them all rope. I mean, what's the difference now in guys? What's the difference in your mind?
Well, the difference in my mind, you had some men back there could really rope. Ricky Canton could really rope. I saw a man today, John Rothwell, could really rope. But it was more for the bigger, stouter men. Now, Roy Cooper wasn't that big, but he had a finesse that nobody else, just get off. Plus, Roy always rode a good horse.
Mm-hmm.
There was an old fella named Whit Kinney. No, Butch Stallman had this horse called Whit. And I saw that horse go, but that Roy Cooper could rock and roll on that horse. You've seen pictures of him riding him at the finals and all, and he could really rock and roll on that horse.
Wow. It's funny, John Rothwell, the guy he just said was the same guy that Zeke was roping calves at his house. Zeke Thurston was roping calves at John Rothwell's and got in a wreck with the slack behind him.
I just
same
realized
guy.
that, yeah.
Yeah. I saw him today. He was a pallbearer at the service I went to.
Wow.
And I'll tell you another one, Raymond Hollaball.
Mm-hmm.
He and John rode this soil horse, belonged to a man at Robertson up there at Waco. He was one bad cat.
Wow.
I mean, that horse,
Yeah.
the main thing back then, you had to have the horse.
Right.
You
Just because the calves were so big and strong.
The calves were so big and strong, and Roy had a horse named Charlie, and he was a really, really good horse.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
What was one of your, when you think of you have, clearly your memory is sharp, so you have probably a lot of great memories, but I'm talking about like top 1 or 2 great memories of wins you've had.
I was with Tom Walker, and now you talking about get the rodeos.
Tom Walker.
Tom Walker could get around. I mean, big time. Well, we went to Rapid City one morning. We were down low in the slack. We had reruns. 16 flat was winning the roping when I rode in the box. And my hand was so sweaty. It was 20 degrees outside, and I just couldn't get my hand dry. I was so nervous because I had the only one that took it, that 16 flat there. And I roped him, and usually I'm pretty good about roping when I got there back then. But I tracked him about 3/4. Finally, I got it out of my hand, got off, went down there, good little old cab, tied him in 11, and I won Rapid City.
Wow.
And I guess that was, but I've had a lot of, and I'll tell you, actually, since these numbered roping deals, my girlfriend, you can ask her, I win more now.
Mm-hmm.
Roping against, like the senior pros, I go to them some, but the same people beat you when you're in your age bracket that beat you when you were younger, like Robert Blanford.
Robert Blanford. That guy don't age.
Huh?
He doesn't age.
He does not age a bit. He does not age at all. He won't rope. He wouldn't rope in our deal for a long time because he had the calves. He didn't want to run the ropers off in the 70 age group. I told him, thank you very much.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he really is.
Wow. What it's funny because I grew up going to Blanford's Ropings over there. I know Lanham spent a lot of time there and stuff. But
I just can't get the ultimate roping 74, 70 and up pro. Like, that's just the coolest thing ever, because I've gotten in the rodeo a lot the last 3 years, and it was probably 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, Fiesta. And you know how they had the qualifier to get into the Fiesta, and then they had the numbered ropings there, and it's a huge deal. People come from all over it's all day roping. And it may have been you. I don't know if it was, but I just look over and I see a 70-year-old man get off and making that run, dude, blasting. I'm just like, I wasn't around roping a lot at that time, and it blew my mind that you're still out there doing it.
Somebody's complaining about how much I wanted those ultimates. Well, Wayne Needham was putting them on, had the deal. And he said, well, check the number of ropings he's been to. Said he's been more than me, and I put them on.
You're like the Wright brothers. I mean,
we went to one every weekend.
He's like, why they win? Why is Steven winning so much? Because he's everywhere.
I mean, I didn't win that much, but at them, you know what I mean. And just they put the average pays double.
Yes,
you know what I mean. Just catch time on.
Catch some time. They said you would the outfits that you had, the shirts you had, the way you dressed was just out of this world back in your prime. I mean,
the way I dressed, I just put on whatever I had floating around. I never dressed. You know what I mean?
They said you were wild.
It was crazy when I was watching we did Charmaine James, and I was looking back at the 1989 barrel racing finals at the NFR. Yellow jumpsuits, red jumpsuits.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was a completely different world.
Better made these shirts. Mowed these shirts. And if you wore his shirts at the ropings, well, I'd have Ricky wear mine. I'd buy 3 for Ricky or 1 for Ricky to wear at the ropings. You know, if you want to go around, you got $50. Me and Ricky split to 50.
I still can't get over that. That was such a good question about the alarm. I cannot get over that. You said the money. You said it real quick.
Money wakes me up, he said.
But you had to have. You overslept for a slag. You had to have.
Huh? Nah.
There's no alarm clocks, or did you ever take a?
I had alarm clocks, but but still, I'm up before the alarm. But let me tell you, when I was rodeoing, my mother had to come wake me up at 8 or 9 o'clock when the books open. Because after you go all weekend, but
she'd wake you up Monday morning. You get home after a long rodeo
Yeah.
weekend, and she'd come get you up.
and then I haul those roping calves too. And I'd take a nap in the truck, but I didn't need anybody,
Yeah.
dollar signs, baby.
Well, at Snook, you always just listen when they hollered, bulldog, bulldog. Well, that means they were in the bulldog calf roping. After that, you better get out of the camper and get ready.
Get out of the camper.
But what they say it's amazing. You swim, and I've heard about you swimming these cattle across down there at your ranch. That's been in your family forever. I mean,
No, my grandfather, we own 200 acres of it, and then the wildlife on the rest. And I had a 30-year lease on it. Well, now the river silted in. The cows go down the beach, and they get in under them $500,000 beach houses. I don't know why the people don't want them under there, but I have to go get them. And then I just quit about 10. Plus, I don't have any fresh water. I had to depend on rainwater. And then that river silting is the worst thing. They dredged it, and they come back, and then I just quit swimming. But I hauled those roping calves 20 years.
Really?
Where was this at?
Down on the intercoastal.
Intercoastal where?
The intercoastal canal.
Okay.
The intercoastal comes across the Bernard and the San Bernard, make about a 4 or 5 mile long island.
Okay.
About a mile wide.
And
my grandfather first one to swim there, and then my daddy did it. They actually had a well over there, but I wasn't going to fight the well.
Really? They said the mosquitoes are treacherous.
Oh, they just don't. I like the mosquitoes bad.
Really?
You find the mosquitoes bad, you find one cow, you find them all. They get together at night.
Really?
So you'd go, that's some ranching, man. You're going in there just swimming them across the canal.
Yeah. I mean, we'd swim over there in the wet summer, winter, and for the winter, and come back in the spring.
I remember going to their opens growing up, and your calves were so fast. No one could catch up to them.
They catch them if you can. That's sponsored by Sawgrass and Milk. Fred put on his trailer one year, sponsored by Raw Talent. He didn't have no sponsors. That's where I got that.
He said sponsored by Raw Talent.
And I put on my little old trailer. They call it Catch 'em If You Can trailer.
The Catch Me If You Can trailer. Oh,
I pulled up the rodeo one day, and Joni was with me. I told her, this lady said, that'll be $10. I said, ma'am, I didn't really like to pay, get in rodeos when I was rodeoing. I said, and now I've got the stock here, says, I sure rather not pay. And she says, well, Lane Falteen's got the stock here. I said, well, I have the roping calves. Man, she went off on me. You had them running blankety blank, blank, blank. Went to cussing me and all. I said, ma'am, have you got an aluminum trailer? Yes, I've got a big, nice one. I said, well, you'll sell your trailer and buy your horse. They keep letting me bring these calves. Been comments like that. I was only in there 20 years.
God.
Only 20.
Yeah, I just hauled them 20 years.
Unbelievable.
And I just, after that, my mother and daddy were older, and
yes, sir.
We had nurses and all, and I just felt like I needed to do it.
Yes, sir.
To offset it. But I sold 110 head to Mark Holder. They're going to be at that big roping up there this weekend, the Patriot.
Oh, really?
They're going to be in the 1500 at the Patriot.
Same type of calves. You're breeding your cows down there, so they're same type, just running off.
They're same type, but they don't come back to that milk.
Gotcha.
That milk's what did it.
So you keep them on the cow, take them to their opens, bring them back on it.
Bring them back and put them back on the cow.
That's why they run so hard.
The worst thing about my calves, if I missed roping 1 week.
Because you weren't.
They got rested.
Gotcha.
And could go. And I'll say this: my friend Lana Mango had USCRA. He used my calves at lots of roping.
That's where I remember roping them. It was at Lanham's roping.
He remembered who helped him. I'll say that for Lana Mango.
Yes, sir.
I guarantee. And we talk a lot every day.
Yes, sir.
One time he called me. He said, "Hey, I've got some time to kill. Thought I'd call you." I thought, "Ah, dang, Lana." Now he calls me. I said, "You got some time to kill."
How many head of cattle did you have down there when you were doing it at your peak? How many did you have?
When we divided, we had 2,200 cows. When my brother and my sister and them divided.
So then you're running. Okay, then you.
Now I'm down to about, because I can't swim and I'm older. I don't want to I'd send heifers to grazing and things. Now I just keep it all down there. So I'm down to about 700.
The reason I was asking, because it's interesting talking about the contracting side of it, having the calves at these rodeos. You have, when you're at your peak, 2,200 cows, and then all these babies drop. And are you just picking out 50 and you're roping them, or you're roping them all and then weighing them out? What's the process like?
When we were all together, I roped them off the first calf or second calf heifers. But when we divided the cattle, I just rope them all now.
Mm.
And like selling those calves the other day, well, it's dead in winter. I mean, them little old calves are roping size. I sold them.
Wow. What did calves used to cost? I mean, I know they roped them 300 plus back in the day, but when would they buy them? You know, how much? What was the calf business like back in the day at the rodeos?
Well, I just did the youth rodeos and all. I'll tell you something else I didn't do. I didn't haul my calves where there wasn't a top over them.
Oh, really?
When I pinned them, and I put them on that trailer, and I pulled out that gate, no rain was going to shut me down. And you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And now I did the Alvin practice over there with Chili's and them, you know, because it's 45 miles, and I could kind of judge.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I could run as much out of them as it'd bring.
It was interesting because
at $5 a run.
Your calves don't take it too bad because they never get caught. They don't ever get choked.
Hey, hold up. Now, I run 5 yesterday. The first one had a broke leg, so I just tracked him down the pen. The others run, and I roped the first 3. Horse set up on the the 5th one. And I just tracked him down there and stopped. I looked around at my girlfriend, Joni. She kind of does her hands like, what are we going to do? I said, put them up. I'm through. You know. But the things, they still can get down through there.
God, dog.
But I can catch them.
Yeah. Well,
I'm going to tell you a story.
Let's hear it.
We're over here at Wharton at the high school rodeo. And I had the calves a week before up at Livingston. I had a friend, Gene Brace, was over there with his boys. And they were all talking about how fast the calves were at Wharton. I turned around and I had a yellow horse that I bought. And I had him around. And I said, well, man, I'm going to let y'all in today. They said, how's that? And I said, well, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get my horse. I'm going to get $2,000. I said, every calf that I'm over 4 flat on, I'm going to give y'all $200. For everyone I'm under 4 flat on, y'all give me $100. And they said, well, I turned around and walked off. Well, one of them said, we should have taken him up on that. I said, he ain't got them horses like he used to. And Gene Bracewell said, hey, said, he's right there. I'll holler back at him. Said, but when he goes up there, I'm going to get me some money. I said, I'm going to bet with him. Same bet with y'all. I said, he got a yellow horse at home. He ain't real great. But I saw him and Cedric Martin rope on him last week at roping these same calves. And they were scored about 3 or 4 foot further. And you could have laid a blanket out there where he roped them. And they wasn't over 4 flat on none of them.
What were you going to say?
And one thing we haven't talked about is the types of calves in terms of contracting and getting them, and then like what breed, why, what type of breed of calves is faster, the Holstein mixes, you know what I'm saying? We haven't really talked about any of that.
I wonder, yeah, that's true. I wonder why a Bramer a lot of times runs harder. Well, and they live better down there in your part of the country. If you take them other places, a lot of times they don't live as good.
Oh, they live as good. People just don't feed them.
They don't take care of them good enough.
You give them crossbred calves the right feed, like Atlanta Mango.
Yes, sir.
And I'll tell you now, there's lots of people got fast calves. I mean, you know, but they just don't feed them.
Uh-huh.
But I'll tell you now, when I took those calves places with Lanham and all, we had that score short.
Yeah.
They'd come down there. They'd come down the back end. I'd be down there sitting there in the lawn chair, me and Joni, and they'd come down there. Hot dang, I got outrun and I wasn't late. My friend said I wasn't late. I wanted to say, well, your friend didn't tell you had a slow horse, but I didn't say that. I mean, you know, they had them scored where you could catch them.
Yes, sir.
And, but my theme song was ba 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 bum. Calf wins again. Calf wins again. Hi ho the Mario. The calf wins again.
Yeah.
I just sang that to myself mostly.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say
That's for yourself.
We were at Tucson. We've been out there and we was up a couple of days. It was raining. So they get in a little wrestling match and they're just wrestling at the room. And Belcher kind of cried out, and I guess Lamb knew he's hurt, and he jumped up. Well, they tore up Belcher's knee wrestling.
Oh.
And I never did like basketball. I'd imagine y'all all play basketball up there, rodeoing and all.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, David Bowen, I've seen lots of people hurt the ankle just playing around.
Really? David could play basketball.
Huh?
David could play basketball.
David Bowen, he was big, but he sprained his ankle when you were playing up there, though.
Well, it's funny because Joe said in our podcast with him, he had a torn up knee, like torn ACL, MCL, the whole deal. And his mom is like, suck it up, son. Like, get out there and rope. Like, come on, you've been out 2 weeks. Do you believe that?
Oh, Bonnie? Yeah. His mom? Yeah, I could believe it. I could believe it.
I mean,
she's tough.
She was tough now. She was tough.
Tearing up that knee in the 80s, I mean, that could be career changing. And then now people tear up their knees, mess up their ankles playing basketball, and it's nothing, you know.
Well, he was back in 6 weeks or so, you know. But he's hurt them since then.
What, so you cracked these guys out. You took Sean Felton, Lanham, Joe.
Yeah, Sean. Now, me and Sean had a lot of fun together.
Yes, sir.
He was a good guy.
I like Sean a lot. How did you know, like, what did you think about Joe or Fred or the type of guys that were like the greatest when you started taking them to the rodeos? What did you think?
Well, like Fred, he wouldn't even be with me, you know, up here at these ropings, and I'd bet on him. I mean, he's just
that much better.
Yeah. I remember Fred when he used to go to Roy Moffat's on Wednesday night. See, Joe's a couple of years older, or was a little more advanced. When we get through roping, we kind of be sitting around there. Well, come on, Moon, rope something. That's what Roy Moffat called Fred. Fred, Moon. So come on, Moon, get on, run something. Fred's working calves around there. I saw right then and there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Just God-given ability.
And Ms. Moffat, Roy's mama, helped Fred a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Roy helped Fred. He's a good guy.
Really?
I used to sell Roy calves and all. And just had a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. I still wish match roping was how it used to be. Like, people match at all the jackpots.
We used to go to them ropings, and they'd always have 3 or 4 match ropings.
Yeah.
You know, and not featured match ropings. Now everything has to be featured.
Yeah.
You know.
Just ropings. It's pretty crazy watching that. Did you go to the Fiesta this year?
Yes, sir.
Did you watch that Caleb Smith and Riley Webb match?
Huh?
Did you see the Caleb and Riley match?
I went to eat a Whataburger.
God!
Well, hell yes, I watched that roping.
What did you think?
Huh?
What did you think about it?
Well, I have a friend, Jeff Yates, and I bet with him. Well, he won the flip, and he took Riley.
Yep.
Then he said, I want Riley and I want Brent. I said, no, this is just like flipping on match rope. You don't get both picks. And he said, all right, well, you get the legends. I said, well, I take Ricky. He said, well, that's the way you'd have been. I said, well, I just didn't want to think you was putting nothing over on me.
You wasn't sneaking one on me.
Yeah, I wasn't sneaking one on me. But anyway, I never thought in my wildest dreams that Caleb Smith miss a calf and beat Riley Webb.
Golly, unbelievable.
It just, in fact, I actually didn't see him miss a calf. I come back, I'd gone to the restroom, the line was long, and I come back around and I saw him halfway.
Wow.
And down there where he'd missed him.
It's crazy.
But I'll tell you what, that Caleb Smith out there is awesome too.
Caleb's, up there with the greats. I mean, with one of the greats, in my opinion. I don't know. You've seen it a lot more years than me, but he seems like he's one of the greats in my opinion. I mean,
how many does he have? 4?
4 gold buckles. But from match roping.
The COVID may have cost him one.
Yep.
The jerk down cost him one.
Yep.
But I'm gonna tell you something else cost Roy Cooper 1 or 2.
The average deal.
The average deal, and then he hurt his arm one year,
Yep.
and they gave it away to the year end. Well, he won the average that year. If they left it one way or another,
Right.
you know what I mean.
Exactly.
But even if but the average out there is so hard to win.
Yeah.
You know, a man can win the world. You know, I don't know how many people's ever won the average 7 times or 5 times.
I don't know of anybody in the calf roping that I can think of at the top of my head.
Well, that's the only event out there as far as I'm concerned. No, not really.
Is that the only one you watch on the Cowboy channels?
No,
the calf roping?
no, I'll watch it all. You know.
When you're not watching the back of your eyelids?
No, when I'm not watching back of my eyelids. That's right.
Yeah, you keep up with team roping much, or you team?
No,
do
but
you
I
team
like to
rope often?
watch. I like good team roping runs.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I think in the team roping they ought to throw the crossfire out.
Yeah.
They ought to just let them throw it, or at least at the finals put 5 on you or something.
There's definitely some discrepancies in that call, in the crossfire call. There's not really a set, it's hard. I mean, and I'm not even blaming the judges, but whatever the rule is and whatever the discrepancy is, it needs to be cleared up, in my opinion.
Well, or else just
or just do something. Yeah, something where it seems like you never know.
Maybe have a hand pull barrier and score 40 foot everywhere, because that's the only way you can get them down the pit. I was telling Lanham they need to score them. He said, "Man, they are scoring them."
Dude.
And I got to watch it. I didn't watch it there, but them guys just take that rope and throw it.
Unreal. In my opinion, that's the event that's evolved the most, is heading. Because the guys back then could come around there and heel one. Bulldoggers were really good. The calf ropers were great. But the heading is insane how it's changed over the last 15 years, however long.
Joe Beavers, I don't know if he gave this man any credit, but he's told me, Joe can reach and rope one and get off. Well, this man down here, Bubba Kendricks.
Yes, sir.
And he could reach like nobody could.
Yep.
And if he had a horse that would keep letting that rope track go and then stop when he went on, he was definitely bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, what'd they call him? What'd they call Bubba?
The old dog.
Yes, sir.
The old dog. That's what Tom Walker said one day. We're going to call him the old dog. He'll bite you.
He'll bite you.
He used to bulldog real good too.
Really?
And bulldogger down there asked me one time, "Has Bubba been winning much of the calf from?" I said, "No, he kind of slacked up the last couple." He said, "Well, I wish he'd go back in that calf from because he's sticking it on and sending that bulldog. One or the other, he was getting the money."
Wow.
It was probably pretty popular for guys. I mean, you're going over there, driving all that way, you're going to enter up in 2-3 events.
Yeah.
Everyone did it back then. A lot of people.
Yeah. There was a man, rope was a lot of competition with Bubba Kendricks, though. It was Ronnie Williams from Huntsville.
Really?
And he roped really good, won.
Mm-hmm.
He had a Western store up there, and he's been in Huntsville all. He's got a Williams ranch now. He's got camels, turkeys, everything.
Exotic ranch?
Huh?
Like exotics?
Yeah, just one or two, a petting zoo kind of deal. He has little getaways. People from Houston come stay there.
Sheesh. What Joe said that y'all be at a perf and that people would be like, "Where y'all going tonight?" And y'all go to a slack after, and then one after that, and one night y'all go to 3 rodeos in a night, amateur rodeoing around here. People going to one. How did you? I mean, did you just know that contractor's that good? How did you get that done? I mean,
well, they just knew when the slacks were.
Knew exactly.
You could go 4th of July. We went to Symington at 10 o'clock in the morning. They had a rodeo at a place called Field Store. We went there. We went to another rodeo in Houston on the south side over there. We came back and we went to Hempstead, Durham. We went to, I don't even remember the name of the rodeo, right there from Snook, below Blind, after, and then we went to Snook after that.
6 rodeos in a day? We need to get this in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Me and Lynn Boone.
Really?
Then the next day, we didn't go out over the 4th of July. We didn't go out there to run, but we went to Marion. Vic Garza had a rodeo there that afternoon, and then we went up at Wimberley that night.
Wow. What, did Joe realize, did he know how crazy it was that y'all were going to that many rodeos? I mean,
Yeah, but Joe was in on it. Joe was. I've seen Joe be the first roper at Wimberley, Texas, 100 and something ropers. It didn't matter when you was up with Joe Beavers. It was 8-2.
Didn't matter.
He won it. He put it away right then when he roped. It was over.
Wow. Who's the guy that drove the most and the longest out of any guy you've ever rodeoed with?
Kenneth Kelly could really drive. Tom Walker could really drive. Me, I'd get along. I mean, you know.
They said you could drive.
But not now. Not now.
I seen Miss Joni whipping that Suburban with you in the passenger seat.
Hey, hold up. She doesn't let me drive. She doesn't let me drive. I don't, you know, but I managed to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, leave Lockhart, and be down there and opening the gates when the hands get there at 6. I can do that.
What was the coolest, best rodeo you ever went to?
Oh, I don't know. I love them all.
I love it.
I mean, it's just, you know, you can't pick out the best of anything.
You roped at everything. You said Santone, you said...
Yeah.
I mean, you roped at all the big ones, so...
Yeah, but
all of them.
Now, I never went to Pendleton because that was during storm season.
Gotcha.
I went to Cheyenne. After Cheyenne and Dodge City, I stayed there in Kansas, in Veneta, because I wanted to be where if they had a hurricane or something, I could get back to help my dad.
Gotcha.
And, but, you know... One time, me and Joe, the year that I picked him up at school, we were with Tom and Beth Walker. We left Minneapolis, Minnesota. We were coming back to Winningwood, where Tom lived. That's what we did every year. Well, I get up, roll over. I don't know if it's 7, 8 o'clock. Might have been earlier than that, but the sun was up. And Beth's up there driving. Tom, he done gone the back seat. I said, Beth. She said, "What's that ass?" I says, she didn't say it like that. So, "What's that ass?" That's what she called me. I said, "You know what this is?" She said, "What?" I said, "An example of exactly how high gas is that you have to put up with me and Joe Beavers all week and then go off rodeoing with us and then driving when the sun comes up on Monday morning." I said, "Pull over. Me and Joe will take her in." I said, "Anywhere you want to stop." I said, Joe, I'm sleepy. I said, "Get yourself up and get up here. That lady's been driving probably 4 or 5 hours in the daylight, in the middle of the night." I said, get up here and let's go."
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, you're a legend, so thanks a lot for coming to do this.
Well, I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I know you're busy, but it's been a lot of fun getting to hear these stories.
I'm never no busy. Like you told me yesterday, how'd you say it?
I don't know which part.
Well, you know when I was talking about something.
The other day, yeah.
What did you tell me? Any publicity is good publicity.
Yes.
Bad publicity is good publicity.
I said all publicity is good publicity, baby.
And I said, I tried to keep the lid on my using obscene language and stuff like that. And I've left anybody out that I should have talked about. I'm sorry if they watch the tape and they feel left out, but I'm sure Ty cut it. Because I didn't leave nobody out.
Tell him I didn't leave. It was all Ty's fault. And thanks a lot, Mr. Perry.
Thank you, sir.